Welcome, Chuck, Chairman of Pannoni Associates, which is an ESOP company. Tell me how you decided to become an ESOP after running the company for 28 years.
Well, it was really very interesting. In 1979, someone came to me and said, I need to transfer ownership in my company. I'm getting older. Would you be interested in acquiring the company? At that point in time, I really hadn't even thought about acquiring another company, but we did our due diligence and did acquire the company, and I always remember that because it was our first acquisition. Settlement was December 11th, 1979. But after that, when word got around, other people, friends of mine who were 70-ish in age and had their own engineering firms, small engineering firms, came to me and said, would you be interested in doing the same thing with us? So over the years, there was a number of firms that I acquired, small firms, probably 10 or 12. And it occurred to me that I didn't want to be in that position when I was 70 years old. I would want to have a plan in place for transfer of ownership. So in 1994, when I was 55 years old, I got the top people in the company together, 22 people, and I said, I'd like us to study the different forms of ownership and see which is best for Pannoni. And I said, we'll look at each form of ownership, but really I believe in a professional services organization. The firm should be owned by the people in the firm. I said, so what we could do is we could be a sole proprietor, which is what we are now, or family owned, since I do have 4 children. And strangely enough, 3 of them became engineers and 1 became an environmental consultant, and that's what we do at Pannoni Associates because we're engineers. Another form of ownership, of course, was to go public, and back in '94, a number of engineering firms were going public. Then, of course, there would be outright sale, sale to the outside, an internal sale to the people in the company, and an ESOP ownership program. So the 22 people got together. I said, look, elect a chairman and a secretary, and any advice we need or expertise we need, I'm willing to pay for to bring in to help you with your deliberations. So to make a long story short, they basically said, and I still have the memo that was given to me, that we recognize that you will make the most money with an outright sale. And if you want to do that, we'll support it. We'll support whatever you want to do. We can't come up with enough money to buy it internally, so we'd like you to consider an ESOP. So I said, fine, and what we did is we joined the National ESOP Association, and our CFO became the person to represent us at those meetings, and that's where we met people like Jim Steiker, who is consultant to establishing ESOPs. So we learned a lot about ESOPs. We interviewed 3 companies, and we settled on Jim Steiker as our consultant, and brought Jim in and talked about what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. Additionally, I knew 3 ESOP engineering firms, one in Baker Engineers in Pittsburgh, Lester B. Knight in Chicago, and Betts Converse Murdoch, which became BCM here in Plymouth Meeting outside of Philadelphia. And I went and I met with each of those because I knew them personally, and I met with the president and CEO and the CFO of each one and picked their brain. And they were very good in sharing information. What was good about the ESOP, what was bad, what they liked, what they didn't like. And between that information, the information we gathered from belonging to the ESOP Association, and Jim Steiker, who was really good in some of our planning sessions and brainstorming sessions, we developed our ESOP plan and we put it in place in 1994. So we did all of that in a relatively short period of time, certainly within 1 year. And from the beginning, we wanted the ESOP to have a minimum of 51% ownership, and then other people in the firm, senior people, have stock ownership outside of the ESOP totaling 49%. And we put a stock option program in place to help them to do that. So today we're about 64% ESOP owned, and of the balance of 36%, I own about 6 or 7%. The balance is owned by senior people in the company, and my stock is on target to be completely sold by our 50th anniversary, which is 2016.
This is a brilliantly executed ESOP, and it clearly benefited from strong advice from Jim. Tell us how his role was so important and what he did to be really productive as a member of your team.
Well, Jim was the brains behind the whole thing. Make no mistake. Jim was the brains behind the whole thing. He's the ESOP expert, and when we would have planning sessions, which I like to call brainstorming sessions, we would throw anything out there. You know, when you're brainstorming, there's no such thing as a stupid question or stupid comment or stupid suggestion. So we would throw everything out there, and then with Jim, we'd dissect it. And we'd really come up with the good points and the bad points, and taking all the good points and what we wanted to do and what we could do within the parameter of the law, of course, we developed what I think was at that time a very unique ESOP program. In fact, I kid Jim. I always say to him, every time an engineering firm copies this with you as their ESOP consultant, shouldn't I get a royalty? Now, of course, I'm just kidding him, but I think that we really worked together as a good team, and Jim was absolutely very valuable in helping us develop that plan and implement the plan.
So looking back, is this a process that you would want to repeat?
I would do it exactly the same way. I have no regrets in anything we did. It was very inclusive with the people in the firm and with Jim and his team, and it was very transparent to people in the firm.
Sounds like it was a win not just for you, but for your employees and certainly your customers as well, as the business thrived from the moment it decided to go ESOP.
It definitely was a win-win-win. It was a win for me because it accomplished my goal of transfer of ownership and ownership by the people within the company. Plus, it rewarded me for my efforts over the years. The people within the company at first said, well, who does this ESOP benefit? How does it benefit us? They didn't realize it until retirement came. And since '94, we've had some people retire, and I have very nice letters, testimonials saying thank you for putting this program in place. And of course, what we do at Pannoni is we make sure we fund an escrow and have cash on hand to buy back the shares as people leave. We do actuarial studies, and we know how much money we're going to need every year. We make sure it's going to be there, not just for the current year, but for the future. And it sends a very good message out to the clients, because when they talk with our staff, essentially they're representing their firm, and that comes across in their dealing with our clients. They feel part of the ownership of the firm. Didn't happen initially, took a little bit of time, but looking back on it now, 18 years later, I see that benefit.
Well, it's not every day I hear a story that's as compelling and that clearly is such a win-win-win. I want to thank you for sharing it, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.